good hit out for the Boks. There's some real breathtaking talent in that back line in particular, and the big forwards. It's a potent mix. We saw a bit of it in the Argentina game. We saw plenty of it in Perth. A willingness to offload the ball, get their wingers involved because they've got some good creative wingers. The influence of Tony Brown, just empowering the players to use their skill sets, and there's some wonderful silky skills.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Big time rugby chat on Mondays as always. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport joining us. What are we going to do? We're going to go through the international matches over the weekend. Under-20s also played today. First match of their World Championships in Italy. And then the game that every All Blacks selector, and what did John Hart say? There's 5 million of us love to play. We've got a team that's going to be announced on Thursday. So I've already selected my 23. Tony can go through his as well. We can compare. Tony, welcome back. Let us start with what we saw on the weekend. Lions kicking off their Australian tour against the Force, and bizarrely the same scoreline in that game as it was the Springboks and the Barbarians. And I think most of us did a double take and thought, hang on a second, is that exactly right? So what did you learn from the Lions, and how much really can we learn in these warm-up matches? Because they go again on Wednesday. They go play the Reds, and then they play New South Wales next Saturday. They're just whacking through them.
I think we can take plenty from it. Okay. First and foremost, that I think there is an intent to use the ball from this Lions team. We saw a bit of it in the Argentina game. We saw plenty of it in Perth. A willingness to offload the ball, get their wingers involved because they've got some good creative wingers. On this occasion, it was Lowe and Hansen. Just keep the ball moving, which might surprise a few people who tend to still look at Northern Hemisphere rugby as being all about grind and biff and bash and kick the ball, etc. I don't think this team's going to do that. What surprised me a little bit was that they didn't dominate the set piece. They didn't dominate the scrum against a reasonable but slightly under-strength pack for the Western Force. They lost a couple of balls at line-out time where Darcy Swain nicked a couple. So they didn't dominate the set piece, but their willingness to move the ball was encouraging. I think Pollock is going to cause a lot of excitement. He is sort of outrageous in some ways what he does. He winds people up. He gets involved in the biff. He got himself yellow card, but then he comes on and he does, or comes back on and, did a couple of quite remarkable things. So he's going to be a player to watch. And the other guy who I thought absolutely wrote himself down in dark ink for the Test team was Finn Russell. I think while he's there orchestrating the team, that backline's going to be dangerous.
Springboks versus Barbars. What do we learn from that? I mean, the Springboks put out a hell of a team. Then they brought a bomb squad on, and I was sitting there watching them as they were rolling maul against the Barbarians team, thinking, how long have this Barbarians team had to prepare to counteract the rolling maul against the Springboks? It wasn't really in the festival nature of these games, was it?
No, I think that disappeared years ago, the festival nature. The fact of the matter is that most of the planning the Barbarians probably did for this game would have been indoors. And there might have been the odd beverage on hand, if that's the old tradition. How it works. Yeah. Look, they had a strong-looking team on paper, the Barbarians. A lot of good names there, but they were probably never going to be a match for the Springboks. Even so, good hit out for the Boks. There's some real breathtaking talent in that back line in particular, and the big forwards. It's a potent mix.
Yeah, we know what we're getting with them, don't we? As soon as I saw them again, it's like, okay, that's right.
We're getting more because the influence of Tony Brown, just empowering the players to use their skill sets, and there's some wonderful silky skills in there. So, no question, they are going to be very tough again. You can't read too much into a game against the Barbarians, but even so, I think they did, in difficult conditions, what you'd expect of them at this stage of the season.
Difficult conditions in Italy too for the under-20s this morning.
Hopeless conditions. A great idea to play this tournament in the middle of the European summer.
Where they reckon it's going to get up to 40 degrees at
the humidity was intense. I mean, we would treated to the sight of one of the New Zealand players having had a shot at goal, running back to halfway, having obviously taken aboard a fair bit of water, and then power chucking in full view. That's not because he's got a tummy bug. That's because it's really hot and humid and he's probably guzzled too much water. But that gives you an idea. I mean, the referee had to allow the water carriers on. So the ball got slippery. The handling from both teams was atrocious.
It wasn't impressive, no.
Look, in the end, I think they did well. That's an Italian team that would have been well fired up for that game, playing at home. Italian rugby has improved. There's no question. They've got some big boys in there. The New Zealand team probably a little bit guilty at times of trying to do too much with the ball, and so they spilt it, and the ball got slippery. But when it really came down to the crunch, although they didn't score points in the second half, they controlled the game really well. Their kicking game was outstanding, beautifully executed. I like the way Simpson sort of moved back and forwards between fullback and then the first receiver, and that enabled them to dictate, for the most part, where the game was going to be played. And in the end, I think the Italians just ran out of ideas, run out of puff. There was nothing they could do. They reduced to having a shot at goal to try and get a bonus point, which missed. They'll play Georgia next. They have got to be better at scrum time. They've got to be way more accurate with their support of the ball carrier at the breakdown, but they've got the talent, particularly in that back line. But they'll look to improve against Georgia, who will bring it up front for sure, and then they'll play Ireland. It's a tough enough pull, and they'll do well to get out of it on top.
Finally, New Zealand Māori playing a Japan 15, and it's not the Japanese 15, but again, a comfortable win ahead of this first test match. Let's call it a test match against Scotland this weekend. Yeah,
so it was a Japan 15 in that nearly all of the players are part of Eddie Jones' national 37-player squad.
Right.
There are just a couple that he brought in from outside that group. A lot of them were uncapped, but this is part of the progression, part of the development plan. They all play in a professional league. Mm-hmm. The Māori All Blacks took a while to get going, not surprisingly, really, because you've got to remember, Martin, that some of these guys had not only come off a Super Rugby final the weekend before, but they'd come off the aftermath of a Super Rugby final.
Fair enough.
But they had to go into camp. It took them a while to get going, but once they did get going,
they scored some great tries.
They played some terrific rugby. Yeah. I thought Sam Knock had a great game at halfback. I thought the Sullivan brothers looked really good. A lot of new faces in the team. But that's a really good hit out ahead of their game against Scotland, which is being played this coming weekend at Whangarei, which is fantastic. I hope they get a really great crowd. It'll be something really to look forward to for the rugby fans in the north.
This is the DSPN.